morning. My name is Bill Himmelstein. I am the CEO and founder of Tenant Advisory Group. We are here with Joel Goldblatt doing a show for Meet Advisors. The show is titled Commercial Real Estate, What You Know Now and Wish You Knew Then. So let's talk to our guest, Joel. Good morning. Thank you for being here.
Good morning, Bill. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Tell us what your business does.
So I'm a lawyer who represents business owners. I'm best thought of like your outside in-house general counsel. And one of the issues we regularly get involved with is real estate related to the business owner's business. And the most frequent real estate issue is leasing.
Absolutely. Great. Well, we've got a lot to talk about. So just to give our viewers an idea, how long does the real estate process generally take from when you say, let's go find space, to when you move into that space?
It can easily take 6 months at a minimum. I usually tell clients, get a hold of a good broker in advance of a year before your lease terminates so that you don't get painted into a corner. I do recommend they use a good broker. The reason is that'll tend to educate them as to the marketplace. They'll actually get a better deal, in my experience. They'll save money in legal costs because good brokers know a lot of the issues that need to be addressed in what is commonly created to initiate the process, which is a letter of intent. And after that process is completed and the tenant is going to proceed with the deal, that's when I become involved.
And it's interesting you say that, because I say absolutely every lease, to be effective, you need a broker and an attorney to review those leases, because brokers aren't attorneys, they're brokers. And so I absolutely agree with you. So real estate, like many businesses, certainly your business, has many moving parts. Can you tell us about a time when one of those details has slipped past?
Well, I think one of the big issues from the tenant perspective is if they're doing a build out, timing, cost, their budgets, and the permit process, and being reasonable expectation-wise about what can be achieved, and having sufficient capital, because landlords won't wait forever. And given, if you're looking in the city of Chicago, the permit process is not necessarily easy, it's time consuming. They probably want to hire an expediter to help them through that process. It's usually money well spent, because otherwise you'll get lost in bureaucracy and it'll cost you in rent when you haven't opened up.
That's an excellent point. I've seen it many times. So that work letter, the tenant improvement section of the lease, is really something to be scrutinized. I appreciate you bringing that up.
The other thing I'd point out is do good due diligence on the space. I've got a restaurant client now who's kicking the tires of his space, and he's finding out what's there and what's not there, and he's creating a budget as we speak. He needs black iron because he fries, and there's a host of issues with that. And so it's fairly expensive on his startup side, and finding the right space in the city for a restaurant has to entail those issues as well.
Absolutely. So aside from the work letter and tenant improvement allowance, are there any other clauses that might seem kind of nonchalant but really should be scrutinized to reduce future liability and risk?
Absolutely. Assignment and subletting. Whenever you look at a lease from either perspective of the landlord or the tenant, you want to build in as much flexibility as you can. That means flexibility on the length of time with options. That means flexibility on the size of your space with options to pick up additional space or maybe give space back. Unusual to get, but you try to get a termination option if you can. These are all issues that down the line, you don't know how big your business is going to be, how it's going to grow, whether it's going to grow rapidly or contract. Things happen, and the more flexibility you build into the lease, from both parties' perspective. Landlords need flexibility, for example, in an office tower to move a tenant if a small tenant's in the way of a big tenant taking over a whole floor. They need the right to move the tenant. And from the tenant's perspective, the tenant wants all the costs of that move and similar premises and build out and recabling and letterhead a budget for advertising the move, all those issues come into play.
Yeah, that's a great point. A lot of people look at a lease as a fixed liability, but it really, to be more effective for your business, you should try and have it be more flexible and fluid with the growth and contraction of your business.
Well, it's both an asset and a liability. A well-negotiated lease that serves the tenant well is an asset. I've seen it in shopping center scenarios where retailers are going out of business and they're able to sell their leases, and it's definitely an asset in that circumstance. It can be a liability too if you're stuck with a lease that really doesn't serve your business. Now it's a liability. And in my experience, it's usually either the second or third largest line item in a business owner's expense. You've got labor, you've got insurance, and you've got rent, and those are the big three.
So you really got to be focused on that. And with that being said, you know, in your long and successful career, what would you say is the most important thing that you know now but wish you knew then?
Well, from the owner's side, you got to be careful about long-term leases because you may want to sell your business and your building one day. And I've seen scenarios where landlords changed their mind 2 years down the line, wanted to sell the property, and a lease impacted the value they could get. So it can be a big deal. It can be hundreds of thousands of dollars if you get it wrong.
Absolutely. Well, that's wonderful. Thank you so much for taking your time and sharing with us. I appreciate
A pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Excellent.